Hi, and welcome to another statistics video. This one is going to focus on the types of errors that you could possibly have in your hypothesis testing, and more importantly, what are the consequences of these kind of errors happening? Is there one that's worse than the other? Can I minimize the errors? Kinds of things like that. So this is kind of the goal. So before we kick off, I do want to do a quick refresh about hypothesis tests. So here's the thing. You get a sample. You compare it to the null. Again, the null hypothesis is very dull. It's boring. There's no trickery. There's nothing peculiar. It's kind of like, oh, the dice is fair. Oh, I do have a standard deck. The spinner works fine. Nothing that makes you kind of peek your head sideways. So here's the thing. If you find that you have a statistically significant difference, basically the chances of you finding your sample are so low that you go, wait a minute, no, there's something going on here. For example, getting 6 red cards in a row from a standard deck. That would probably lead you to suspect. So you need a better model because really the deck isn't fair. Maybe half the deck, instead of being red, maybe 60% of the deck is red. Maybe it's 70%. And then here's the thing. If the difference you find is likely, then you fail to reject. Basically, that would be like getting 3 tails in a row on a fair coin. Is it likely? Yes. Does it make you suspect anything about the coin? Not quite. So you fail to reject. You fail to say the coin is unfair. I can't say that yet. Maybe I need to keep tossing. So here's the thing. When you perform these hypothesis tests, you make a decision. You either reject the null or you fail to reject. You only have 2 options, which means there's only going to be 2 types of errors that you can make because there's always a chance that you're wrong. Yes, OMG, there's a chance that you're wrong. There's always a chance that you're wrong. So 2 types of decisions, 2 types of errors. The first one is a type 1 error. This is when you reject the null when it's actually true. Oh no. So here's the thing. When you reject or you do not reject, we really want to be confident that we're making the right decision. So how confident are we that we're doing this? So here's the thing. The chances of you making a type 1 error is actually the alpha value. It's that level of significance of the test. So anytime that you say, oh, my p-value is less than 5%, guess what? Those are your chances. So if my cutoff happens to be 0.1, then you have a 10% chance of making a type 1 error, and you can say with 90% certainty that this is correct, which seems like kind of a weird sentence, but kind of fun to say. The other option is a type 2 error. Easy way to remember this. A type 2 error means you failed to reject when it was false. So again, probability of a type 2 is called beta. So here's kind of a picture to kind of help you see. So let's say the chances of having twins in America is 3%. Maybe my sample happens to be 5%. Is that going to make me suspect something is going on? So notice the null is the one that is accepted. Notice that line, that alpha, that's the 5%. And then you have the alternative on the other side. So notice there's that overlap there. So notice that red, type 1, you have failed to reject, and then you kind of see it floating on either curve, which is kind of weird. So again, on that side is a failed reject, on the other side is the reject. So you can see I reject when I shouldn't, I failed to reject when it's false. And again, so my p hat is really part of the null, but we mistake it as being part of the alternative. And same thing with the type 2. Really, my sample is significant, but I mistake it and say, no, it's not significant. So let's kind of put that away. Let's kind of put this into a table here. So we have the truth. Again, usually it's unknown, but we have our decisions. So you reject when the null is true. And then you kind of have the correct statement. So I reject it when it's false. I fail to reject when it's true. Here's the thing. If it happens to be true, but I accidentally rejected it, that's the type 1 error. If the null is false and I fail to reject it, that's a type 2 error. They seem a little weird at first. I totally understand. So how do we actually word these sentences? So the way that I do it is I say, we decide this, but in reality, this is true, is usually how I like to word those. And again, you tend to replace the red part with the context of the question. So let's actually try this when it comes to a murder trial. This is kind of one of the easier ways to think of it. So here's the thing. In our justice system, we always say that you are, hopefully you said innocent until proven guilty out loud. And if you did say it out loud, I hope you giggled and people looked. So the null, defendant is innocent, again, until proven guilty. The alternative, defendant is guilty. So a type 1 error says, oh, I've decided he's guilty. I rejected. Ooh, when I should not have. So I called him guilty when he was really innocent. So that's kind of sad. Type 2, I failed to reject. I called him innocent. Ooh, when he's actually guilty. And again, jot down some possible consequences of this, because let's face it, on the type 1, you just sent an innocent person to jail. And on type 2, a guilty person just went free. So here's kind of the question to consider. When it comes down to it, in our justice system, most people in this context will agree that a type 1 error is much more severe than a type 2, which is why we have to be very, very careful, which is why when you say that a person is guilty, you have to be without a shred of doubt that that person is in fact guilty, because you do not want to send an innocent person to jail. So if you're in any law classes, you'll see that they try to really stress this, that if you can cause doubt in the jury, you don't want to say that they're guilty, because it is much more severe to send an innocent person to jail. Here's another picture. I think this one's a little bit more clear, and it kind of in the law aspect. Again, not guilty verdict, verdict is guilty. The red and the gray show the type 1 and the type 2 error. So on the red, notice the person is innocent. Oh, but I mistook it as being part of the alternative. I mistook it and called him guilty. The type 2 is the gray. Notice the gray is on the guilty part, but I mistook it, didn't see it was significant, and I said, oh, no, he's innocent. So I hope that picture kind of helps you see it a little bit better. Again, that dotted line, that's the alpha value, that cutoff. All right, pause the video and try to do this example with the Lay's potato chips. All right, welcome back. So notice this is trying to decide if an entire truckload is going to be acceptable. So I kept this one simple. Null, potatoes good. Alternative, potato bad. So again, the null is dull. There's no trickery, there's no fishiness, the potatoes are fine, the dice is fair, and the alternative is like, I wonder if it's okay. I wonder if the dice is loaded. I wonder if all those potatoes are bad. Again, type 1, I say something is significant when it's not. So I decide the potatoes are bad, ooh, when they're actually good. Type 2, I failed to reject. I say the potatoes are fine when, ooh, they're actually bad. So here's the thing. From the supplier's viewpoint, which one is more serious? Hopefully you said a type 1 error, because again, you just told me they were bad and sent them back, and they're actually good. Why would you send me bad potatoes? They're fine. So again, that hurts me. But from the company's standpoint, the type 2 error is going to be worse, because I just put bad potatoes in my chips, and I'm probably going to get sued because someone's going to throw up. So you got to be really careful there. And again, you got to keep in mind that sometimes the seriousness depends on the person's point of view. With that said, let's try a medical one. The medical ones tend to be a little bit more interesting. So again, pause the video, try to do this one on your own. All right, hypothesis of the null. The medicine is not toxic. The medicine is fine. It's going to work. No fishiness. It's dull. Alternative, the medicine is in fact toxic. It is harmful. It's bad. Dice is not fair. Things like that. So again, type 1 and type 2 error. Hopefully for a type 1, you decide the medicine is toxic when it really isn't. Type 2, I failed to reject. I said the medicine is not toxic. Ooh, but it actually is. So take a minute and decide which one is more serious. Hopefully this one you noticed is a type 2, because people could be harmed if you do a type 2. Decide the medicine is toxic when it really isn't. That just means I'm not going to give the medicine away. I'm just not going to use it. But if I've decided the medicine is fine and I give it to people, people are going to be harmed. That's bad. Type 2 tends to be very serious in the medical field. All right, last example. Go ahead and again, try this one on your own. All right, so we decide the mean weight of the hamburgers is less than 4 ounces when in fact they really are less. Well, here's your null and your alternative. Guess what? You made the correct decision. I said it was less when in fact it is. That's a great decision. Tap yourself on the back. This one, again, we decide that the mean weight is not less. Ooh, when in fact it really is less. You just made a type 2. I failed to reject. There is something significant. I said there wasn't. All right, so to summarize, I love this kind of picture because I really think it helps you see. So again, the null is you are not pregnant. The alternative is you are pregnant. Something kind of funny, but it's very, very humorous. So anytime you hear someone say, oh, this was a false positive or a false negative, you know in your statistical heart deep down that it's actually a type 1 or a type 2 error. Thanks so much for watching. Feel free to watch any more of my awesome, you know it is, statistics videos. I'll be here all week.